By far, the most important issue weighing on the minds of voters across the nation this presidential election is the economy. In fact, a whopping 93% of Republicans and 82% of Democrats say it's extremely important, bumping the economy to the top of the list, outpacing every other issue by more than 15%. Inflation during the Biden-Harris administration hit a 40-year high and stands at more than 20%, meaning people are paying record high prices for food, gas, housing, and everything else. In fact, according to reports, inflation over the last 3 years is costing American taxpayers 22% more in food costs, 23% more for shelter, 29% more in energy, 28% more on electricity, almost 30% more for gasoline, and a whopping 57% more in car insurance. The major drivers of inflation, according to economists, are the Biden-Harris economic policies, the Inflation Reduction Act, and illegal migration. Economists say the mass influx of millions of migrants dependent on government welfare programs, receiving free health care, free food, free travel, and housing is putting a major strain on the U.S. economy. Research recently published by Goldman Sachs found that rents raise 1% for every 100,000 in annual net migration. It also found that mass migration may actually cause the per capita GDP to decrease, and that large numbers of migrants who are dependent on the government is a significant driver of cost. When the cost of care for migrants started cutting into local, state, and federal budgets, people started taking notice and speaking out.
But it is so unsafe. I have men that cannot speak English in my front yard screaming at me, throwing mattresses in my front yard, throwing trash in my front yard.
I honestly feel like someone's getting paid from it in the background. You got a bunch of people on a bus getting dropped off at a gas station to come down here. I know a single mom that FaceTimed me this morning at the welfare office that really need something. And it's nothing but immigrants over there.
We need change from sky-high inflation. According to Yahoo Finance, the cost of groceries is up over 25% during the Biden-Harris administration. Food is unaffordable for most Americans. That has to change.
The Federation for American Immigration Reform, aka FAIR, calculated that the migrant crisis cost U.S. taxpayers $150 billion in 2023, forcing some localities to cut services for citizens, including from fire and police departments. Denver, Colorado, cut $45 million from its budget to pay an estimated $160 million bill for migrants. New York City is spending $2.3 billion to house illegal migrants and has spent $6.1 billion since 2022. Maine increased property taxes to pay for migrants, then told elderly residents to remortgage their homes to pay those taxes. Chicago spent $1 billion to house and feed migrants, and Texas is spending more than $850 million a year dealing with the migrant crisis. FAIR saying that's just the tip of the iceberg and spending is actually much higher. The nonprofit estimates that there was more than 16 million illegal migrants in the country as of 2022, receiving millions of dollars from FEMA, something that was put on display when Hurricane Helene ripped through Florida, Georgia, Tennessee, and North Carolina. And the question of FEMA funding was put in the national spotlight. People in North Carolina were fuming about the initial $750 stipend they were offered by Harris, many saying they had applied for it and got denied. The cost burden on taxpayers and FEMA funding shortage forced people in cities thousands of miles from the border to feel the economic impact illegal migrants and open border policies are having on their bank accounts, most of whom are blaming the current administration for forcing them to have to choose between buying food and paying bills, while migrants are being given everything for free. Voters have become acutely aware of the impacts that out-of-control government spending and open border policies have had on their everyday lives. The overwhelming majority saying something needs to change. In Dallas, Christina, Aguayo, Salem News Channel.